Digital Champions program that has been running within the Hall Green NNS area. We have got a very, very tight agenda, but we've also got an extremely exciting agenda. So I just wanted to go through, you can see on the screen what the agenda is going to be. I'm going to start off by giving the context about the Hall Green Digital Champions program and just give an overview as to why, how, and what for, and how far we've actually got with it so far. Following that, we're going to have a session delivered by Good Things Foundation and the wonderful Hilary Nugent, who has kindly joined us today. And Hilary will be able to share about the work that they have been doing, not only on this project, but generally up and down the country around digital exclusion plus digital champions. And then I'm very pleased also to introduce Utilita Energy, and we have Jack Badger from Utilita, who has been working in partnership on this project with us. And Jack is going to talk about the importance of partnership working and what they are doing also to address digital inclusion across the area as well. Towards the end of this session, there will always be an opportunity to have questions and answers. So we are going to ask if we can keep all questions and answers towards the end of the session. That would be really helpful. But in the meantime, you have got the chat panel. If you'd like to put anything into the chat, that would be helpful. And we have Hafsha, who will be managing the chat at the same time, because unfortunately my transferable skills, or multitasking skills rather, are not very good. So thank you for everyone who's helping out on today as well. So cracking on with the agenda, I wanted to try and give you a little bit of a context into the actual project itself. So we're just letting more people into the room. Okay, so the actual agenda of Digital Champions is something that's a real hot topic. For those of us who are able to use technology in today's world, we're able to get online, we're able to search for offers, shop online, do banking online, save online, and that seems to be quite a normal thing for us to do. But there are many people around the country and more so within our area as well, who are unable to do this. As a result of that, there's so much vulnerability. People who aren't able to get online are much more vulnerable, much more disadvantaged. And this includes people who are in crisis, they're in abusive relationships, or who simply just cannot afford to get online as well. So what we've been doing is trying to address that issue in Hall Green by setting up a Digital Champions project. So the first part that we needed to do in setting up our project was obviously to identify the need. And the way we identified the need was through setting out some surveys. And this happened during the heat of the pandemic, where we decided to set out surveys, send out surveys that went out to both assets as well as individuals within the area. That was part of what we call our Hall Green NNS Digital Inclusion Strategy and Plan. The Hall Green Digital Inclusion Strategy was basically putting together a digital working party, which is chaired by Hall Green NNS. And as part of the strategy, the main thing we had to try and address was how we can improve digital accessibility within the area. It was an issue, it was a challenge, it was something that was being highlighted. It was causing many challenges as people were offline. Services couldn't engage with service users couldn't engage with services. And so it was something that needed addressing. So the digital working party, set about by looking at how we can improve digital accessibility. And accessibility, from our perspective, came in three forms. One was through devices, trying to get devices to people who didn't have it. One was through the digital skills agenda, and one was through data. And what we needed to do was try and address all those individually. So as part of the digital inclusion structure for Hall Green, we set up a digital recycling centre, and that's based at one of our assets at Ballswood Green, which is the Moaf Trust. And the digital recycling centre was simply a route to try and address exclusion for people in the area who didn't have a device. And we can talk in more detail about that. We also set up a digital capacity building program, which was looking at how we can support smaller organizations or assets within the area who suddenly found themselves through lockdown unable to communicate online with their service users. So we mustn't forget that small organizations are used to delivering face to face, and during the pandemic, it became quite challenging whereby they had to start delivering remotely. And so that created quite a challenge. And so we had a digital capacity building program to try and address that as well. In addition to that, we set up the digital champions, and the digital champions was there as almost a conduit between the three services.
I don't know whether I'm actually on it.
Recycling.
I'm listening to this man.
Capacity building.
I can't see my picture.
To try and bring the services together.
I know I pressed that.
We are having interference with people who've got their mics still switched on. Can I just ask if you have got it on, switch it off, please? So we can just have a bit of a one person speaking, please. So the three services were there as part of the NHS NNS Digital Inclusion Strategy and Delivery Plan. When we did the survey, the reason digital champions came about was purely as a result of the survey. Some of the facts and figures I'm trying to share on screen with you. When we sent the survey out, there were 20% of residents who had absolutely no access to the internet. And this is what I was saying right at the beginning. When you start thinking that to us, accessing the internet is a norm, for many people who don't have access to the internet, it was quite scary. Within Birmingham, internet exclusion is riding around 8–9%, but in certain areas of the community, such as the ones that we live in, it's much, much higher. So our surveys came back with about 20% of people not having any internet access. 50% of the residents were accessing internet by sharing. So you and I know that that creates many security issues and vulnerability as well. 40% needed support just to get online and be confident with things like filling out forms, benefit information, the skills development, just applying for jobs. So the support element of getting people online was becoming an even greater picture within all this. There were 50% of residents who still needed access to devices, and devices, as we said, is just one element of the accessibility. So without a device, it's absolutely almost impossible to do anything online. And so you've got the support issue, the device issue, and the data issue all wrapped together as well. Of the assets we spoke to, 30% of Hall Green assets were also interested in becoming a digital delivery partner. And that's where the Digital Champions was put together. When you look at the Digital Champions program, it was a 12-month pilot program that we've been running. And there were two strands to it. The first strand was to try and support individuals to get online. But in order to do that, the identification had to happen. We had to identify where those individuals were. And secondly, we wanted to support organizations as well at the same time. The project we were running for the last 12 months have supported in excess of 10 assets. And these are assets who are both working and operating within Hall Green as well as outside of Hall Green. The people that we were supporting in terms of assets, we were also supporting their people within their organizations to become digital champions. We were developing digital champions in two forms. One was individuals who we identified that wanted to support other people to become digital champions. And then we were supporting organizations to develop in-house digital champions as well. And as a result of that, there were approximately, so far, we've had interventions with over 200 people who we've supported through the project in becoming more better online. Those individuals are made up of mixed genders, mixed ages, mixed abilities, people with health issues. It's a complete mixture of people that we've been trying to support, but they've all been vulnerable within the area because they were offline. So the support has been coming through individuals supporting them as well as companies supporting them. Now, the reason why you see 200 plus is because the organizations who we've been supporting by putting champions and devices into their organization, they are now supporting other people. So it's become a bit of a domino effect. And therefore, trying to access information coming back from the assets that we're supporting as to who they're supporting is just a little bit challenging and a little bit slow. So that's why there's not an exact figure as to how many we are supported, because we don't know how many people are being supported through the organizations that we have been supporting as well. And this will all come out a little bit more in the discussions we're having. So when you start looking at some of the assets that we have been supporting, these are just some of the names that we wanted to talk about. There are a number of schools who we've been supporting. Schools have become a real issue in the fact that they have got many parents, many families, many children who have been offline. So we've been working with the schools, and there are so many other schools that we have worked with, where we have developed digital champions within the schools to support the parents within the schools. And that's been really, really helpful, because obviously having a person who has that lived experience, who perhaps goes to the school, who's actually part of the community within that school, is a regular face, a regular voice within there, is able to support people and attract people much easier than people from outside of the area. So the support of organizations and supporting individuals has been absolutely vital in developing this program. What I'd like to do also at this stage is, I know we've got a number of people on there, but we've also working across health and with Hall Green Health, who were also online with us today. So I know Angela is with us. Angela, do you want to just chip in a little bit and just explain about some of the work and the challenges that we've been trying to address? Because unfortunately, Angela has got many commitments and she needs to leave a bit early today as well. So Angela, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's fine. I was having a bit of technical problems with the volume. Thanks, Salim. So the reason we got in touch with Salim was that I am the Patient Services Manager here at Hall Green Health, and also the Health and Inequalities Champion across the PCN, Hall Green Community PCN, which consists of Northbrook Medical Practice and also Swanswell, as well as ourselves. So we've got a cohort of about 40,500 patients that we're actually dealing with. So during COVID, obviously we had problems with trying to access some of our patients that are digitally deprived. So if the GPs needed to contact them during COVID, we needed to find out if they were okay. We found that some of our patients across the PCN weren't actually able to contact the practice, let us know what was going on during COVID. And this was because they had no either internet, they had no mobile phones, they had, you know, they really didn't have access at all. So they would physically try and come down to the practice, or a relative or a friend would actually try and get in touch with us. So this was one of the things that I was quite concerned about in my role as being patient services manager, is to try and make sure that our patients are looked after and that we are addressing some of the needs and the challenges that we had during COVID. So working with Let's Get Families Talking with Salim, what we decided to do was to try and trial it with about 10 of our patients to try and see whether or not, you know, giving devices to them, it would actually help with them contacting the practice, and for our doctors and nurses to be able to check in with them and our social prescriber for the needs that they sort of like had. And Salim has been very instrumental in trying to get those across to us so that we can actually help some of our patients and our clients that need the help. There are more patients than we thought that have got problems accessing mobile phones, you know, sort of like computers, laptops and things that we didn't really think of at the time. And because of dealing with health and inequalities, we actually found that this was an area that we needed to try and target, because there's a lot of our patients that can't get in touch with us, which means that a high number of patients actually do come to the surgery, whereas they could access the website, they could know what's going on our websites and things. So they've not been able to do that. And so I'm working with Salim to try and get a few things sorted for our patients this end.
Thank you very much, Andy. I really appreciate that. And I think this also shows the complexity of what we're trying to achieve here, because Digital Champions isn't simply trying to put one person in front of another person and help them to get online. When you're trying to support organizations, as we are through this service, it requires a whole holistic approach, and it requires a strategy that goes along with it. And it's not as straightforward, and it's quite a long period of support that is required for organizations to try and enable them to not just get online, but also to get engagement with their service users who are offline. And at the end of the day, that's what businesses are in business for, to try and deal with their customers. So it's been quite challenging, but very exciting to be able to address some of these challenges that Andina has shared with us as well there. Where does Digital Champions go next? I just quickly want to end my presentation by just talking about where we're looking at taking it to the next step and the next stage. So ideally, we're looking at funding streams, external funding streams, to try and build and develop the capacity of this service. The capacity of this service, we've tested it out for the 12 months. It's changed along the way, and it's continually changing depending on what the needs are coming out. And as you've heard from just one of our cases there, the needs are nothing like we thought they would be when we first started as well. We aim to work more strategically with various partners, including BCC and their strategic themes. And I know colleagues from the BCC are actually on here today as well. But we were quite instrumental at the beginning in trying to help launch the Birmingham Digital strategy, which was launched towards the end of last year. And Digital Champions plays quite an important theme across the whole city, not just for the NNS of Hall Green, but across the whole city. And we are in constant communication with our partners over at BCC, keep them up to date with the work we're doing and the developments that we're going through as well. Another area that we're aiming to work more closely with is that all future projects coming out of Hall Green NNS will always have some elements of digital within there. and therefore it makes sense that services like digital champions interact at the beginning with them, so we can guide them and help shape their service to ensure digital is playing a major role within their projects as well. We are looking at developing more collaboration and links with partners for volunteering opportunities, and I'm not going to expand too much on that because our next two speakers will be talking about those opportunities of collaboration in much more detail. And another area that we're looking at developing, which again, our next speaker is going to talk a little bit more detail in terms of resources, is how we can best support our assets and digital champions with developing more of a structured pathway. There are many pathways out there, but when you're delivering something more customized within your area, you need to make that much more customized towards the needs as well. One of the things we're doing is developing our own e-learning modules to support the development of digital champions, and those e-learning modules will be released very shortly after evaluation with organisations such as Good Things and other partners around the table as well. People can still register to be a volunteer to support this cause, or organisations who need help with volunteers can also register as well, and the link is down there at the bottom, and we can share that a little bit more in detail as well. I know there may be questions, but like I said, I've taken up a little bit longer than I wanted to, so I'm now going to stop sharing, and I'm now going to hand over to our next speaker, which is Hilary from the Good Things Foundation. Hilary?
Thank you so much, Salim. Right, I'll start off by trying to share a screen and then we'll take it from there. Hang on a minute. Let me just do that and get us onto that.
Whilst Hilary's sorting that out, we have been working very closely with Hilary and Good Things Foundation in terms of the resources and support for digital champions, which Hilary will go through now.
Thanks very much, Salim. Sorry, it's always slightly embarrassing when you come from a digital inclusion charity and you struggle with digital things and sharing your screen. But I am really pleased to be here today and to be invited by Salim and Hafsa to talk to you. I want to talk to you just a little bit about the work of Good Things and what we do, and some of the resources that we have that can support digital champions and digital inclusion within your communities. And also, because we work with organisations right across the country, just to talk a little bit about what I've learned about digital champions and where you can look for them and who makes a good digital champion. So let me just... So just very quickly, Good Things Foundation. We see ourselves as the UK's leading digital inclusion charity, and certainly over the last sort of 10 years, we've helped over 3 million people get online in one way or another. There are lots of things that we do to do this. So our whole aim, if you like, is our stated aim is to try and fix the digital divide for good. We do that in terms of we provide a lot of free resources for organisations. We do a lot of campaigning work. Helen, our CEO, can often be found sort of pounding the corridors in Westminster trying to persuade politicians of all natures to put digital inclusion on their agenda. We work quite a lot with larger organisations to bring in funding, and then that funding can go back out to the partners that we work with. But probably most importantly for today, the work that we do is done in partnership with community organisations such as the wonderful Smartlight, who we believe are just doing such brilliant things in their own communities that we see our role as supporting that work, whether it's financially or with resources, but to go, the communities on the ground know what they're doing, and how can we best help you to deliver that. So across the UK, we probably work with about 3,500 different organisations at the moment. those organisations we call the Online Centres Network, but essentially it's anybody that's doing any work around sort of digital and digital inclusion. So it can be, and often is, GP surgeries, libraries, community centres, larger organisations such as sort of housing associations, or smaller local organisations like Women's Aid or refugee centres. Anybody who needs support and advice around digital inclusion, we are really happy to work with. So just a little bit about some of the resources that we have, and I know Salim and Smartlight use Learn My Way a lot. It's a free to use online learning platform essentially, and the idea is that it's very, very basic courses to help people learn digital skills. So it actually starts right at the beginning with things like how to control a mouse, how to use a keyboard, and then slightly more advanced topics like how to go online with your banking or accessing health information online. It's not like a structure where you have to go through a list of things, so people can dip in and out of it at the level they want or the course that they want. And we've designed it so that community centres like Smartlights can sort of access and monitor it, or it can be used by individuals. So that's one of the tools that we're most proud of, I think, is our Learn My Way tool. Other things that we're trying to do to assist with organisations with sort of digital and digital inclusion work is the National Data Bank. So obviously during the pandemic, and I think Salim's sort of summed this up really well, is that the things that became more and more apparent weren't just that not everybody has digital skills, but they also don't necessarily have access to get online, whether that's with devices or just with the cost of data itself. And obviously with the cost of living crisis where it is, and a lot of the communities, I'm sure, in your local area will know that their clients and the people they work with are struggling more and more in terms of just putting food on the table or paying the heating bills. So access to data and the cost of data has become more and more important, and people are having to, even if they have the skills to get online, they can't necessarily afford to do so. So we started working in partnership with Virgin Media O2 and worked with a small number of community organisations to look at how we could get data out to individuals. That small pilot became the National Data Bank, and we now work with 3 and Vodafone as well. And they have between them promised us enough data to help potentially up to 500,000 people by the end of next year. And the idea is that we have data in the form of SIMs or vouchers, and we work then with community partners, and they can decide who that data goes to. They work with their local clients. So accessing the data bank, you can do absolutely directly with Smartlight in your local area, and there's a link there to how you can do that, and I'm sure Salim can tell you more about that. From our point of view, if you'd like to join the Online Centres Network just to get access to any of those devices, there's a link there so that you could join the network. And I would like to say, just reiterate that joining the network is absolutely free. You dip in and out to whatever you would like to get involved in, whether that's just accessing some of our resources or joining up more in some of the things we do, like training, or just we have meetups within different organisations that are serving different communities. So we regularly meet up with organisations that are teaching ESOL, for example, or we have different meetups with people who have different training needs and training skills. We're looking quite closely at what we can do around health specifically, and meetups for people that are involved in health and getting people online for that way. If you join the Online Centres Network, you could also join the data bank directly, but I'm sure that many of you working very closely with Salim and Hasha will be quite happy to work directly with them to get access to the data bank. So I just wanted to very quickly, because I don't want to take up too much time, but talk a little bit more about Digital Champions. I've worked at Good Things Foundation for about 3 years now. And I'm very biased in that I love digital champions. Whenever I talk to centres all over the UK, the work that volunteers and or staff are doing as individuals to support people to get online is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's fundamental in a lot of cases to giving people confidence to take those first steps to venture into the digital world if they've not really been in it before. And it was also one of the reasons that I was so happy to come and talk today, just because I am a huge fan of digital champions and all that they do. So I just wanted to reflect a little bit about a training course that I was involved in a couple of months ago, and we were just talking about what made a good digital volunteer, sorry, not a digital volunteer, and this sort of little word cloud of just some of the things that came out of it. So a lot of the things that made a good volunteer is someone that communicates well, somebody that's reliable, somebody that's interested in learning themselves, somebody that's part of a team. So there's a lot of things that, if any of you are sort of involved in employing volunteers yourself, I'm sure you will all recognise. But I was also involved in a discussion in Wales a couple of weeks ago about digital champions, and it's essentially what made a good digital champion. And when we listed out the skills that you needed, what we all sort of came to the conclusion was that it is useful, obviously, if your digital champion has some technical skills. They need to be reasonably comfortable about going online using a device. But more unique or more important in a lot of people's view, I think, was that actually the people skills. If somebody's nervous about going online for the first time with a computer, or is just very early on in their journey, the fact that you have time to listen to them, that you're friendly, that you're supportive, that you are patient, that you're happy to go back over things more than once, a good sense of humour, those things are probably more important almost than technical skills. And I think to back that up, I was up in Edinburgh a few weeks ago talking to a group of very long established digital champions that worked in sheltered schemes across the city. And I was asking them what they thought the key skills were and what they thought they sort of brought to the table. And there was a couple of things that really struck me. It was that one of them just said, you really don't need to be a technical expert. You just have to be happy to Google it. And that really struck a chord with me. It's like, you have to be comfortable enough online to be able to look up something for someone else, but you don't have to have all the skills and all the knowledge at your fingertips. And there was another older lady who lived on the sheltered scheme where this particular class was being run. And I said, well, you know, what brought you into being a digital champion? She said, I came along because I thought I needed help with digital skills, but I ended up staying to volunteer. And I think that was, again, because she realised she knew enough and she could help and support someone else that had been nervous just like her to get online. So I think when we're talking about a digital champion scheme, and when obviously Salim has got lots of plans to grow and make that work right across the neighbourhood area, I think it's really important to remember that being willing to listen to people and hear their stories is probably the most important tool that any digital champion will have. And potentially there's a digital support volunteer in many of us. So just very quickly, I just wanted to share a couple of resources that we have as an organisation that digital champions can access. So when I talked about Learn My Way before, obviously most of that is sort of entry level training for beginners, but what there is also on there is a How to Be a Digital Champion training course. And what I like about it is there's a lot of activities, videos, little scenarios. Anybody can access this. There's a lot of supporting resources that go with it. So as an individual, you can just go online and work your way through the course. You don't have to be sort of connected to an online centre even. It's just, and if anybody's thinking about just helping out their auntie or their uncle or just helping out someone to get online, this is a really nice place to start. And also that there are lots of things and lots of resources on the Good Things website. I am absolutely sure along the way that Salim and Hasha have contributed to many of these, but just really single documents like, you know, your guide to helping older people use the internet, using games to teach tablet skills. There's a whole range of resources that are already there for you as an organisation if you would feel you might value it. So that's me. I just wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm very happy to stay and answer questions, or I said to Salim I need to run off about 5 minutes before the end, but it's, yeah, if there's any questions now or later, please send them my way.
Thank you very much, Hilary. And I have to say, Hilary has been absolutely instrumental. We are on short dial because she's got a wealth of knowledge around digital champions and volunteering that is just difficult to get hold of. And no matter how many times you listen to this presentation from Hilary, it always just makes you sit up and just listen to it over and over again. I think one of the things that stood out for me in that word cloud was the lived experience and the language, because those things are so important, especially with the area that we're dealing with. Language is such a challenge when you're trying to teach people digital skills when they haven't got English as the first language. It becomes really, really challenging, and I'm sure a lot of people around the table will agree with me on that as well. So what we're going to do next is, and Hilary and Good Things have just been one classic example of how collaboration, working partnership, networking helps to deliver services. We could not do this service on our own. And our next guest is Jack Badger, who's from Utilita, and I'm sure Jack will explain all the reasons, back up all the reasons I've just given as to why they are also on board with our Digital Champions project. Jack, welcome.
Oh yeah, thank you very much for having me, and thank you all for listening as well. Unfortunately, I don't have a really good presentation. It's just going to be me talking for about 2-3 minutes, so I do apologise about that. But to be honest, I'm just kind of backing up the fantastic way that Get Families Talking do, so and Smartlight, of course. So just kind of a brief introduction. And so as Salim said, my name is Jack. I work for a company called Utilita Energy. So Utilita have hubs, community hubs, if you like, all up and down the high street across England and Scotland. We've got 9 altogether. So essentially people come in, they come and speak to us about bills and energy efficiency advice and all that sort of stuff. And we're essentially a face-to-face customer services for people. So but in terms of like what that has to do with Get Families Talking then, so we deal with a lot of people who do find themselves digitally excluded. So this is people that are in, you know, fuel poverty that goes hand in hand with data poverty. That, you know, a lot of it goes hand in hand because it's all money at the end of the day for a lot of people. So our relationship with Get Families Talking Smartlight began back in January. So had an initial phone call with Salim, saw the amazing work that they do on the local ITV news when I was working from home, unfortunately because of COVID. However, it's kind of fate, it kind of brought us together. We could see an opportunity there to work together on these huge important projects. So myself and Demanjit, who I work with, met up with Salim and Hafsa and just got the ball rolling basically. So what's happening then? So in terms of digital inclusion, so it is obviously massively important to us, especially with our position in the industry, smart meters rolling out to customers, that sort of thing, in line with government requirements and measures, and that's what it means to them. These smart meters are supported by our app. So with the app, customers can top up, they can monitor usage, and they can upload their meter readings and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, that's like that with SSE, British Gas, they all kind of have similar apps. They can view the bills, they can see what's called a smart score as well. And this measures, it measures their usage and gives them practical tips on how they can save money. But the reason why I mention the app and these digital inclusion is because we have a lot of customers who need these services but don't have the means to pay for mobile data. They don't have internet access and they don't have like these, you know, digital devices that we have and we take for granted every single day. And they may not even understand what the word digital is. I mean, Salim and I had a discussion about Sandwell visually impaired, who we're both doing workshops for, and a lady just turned around to Salim and says, what does digital actually mean? And that kind of just hits the nail on the head about the people that need this service. So kind of like a perfect case study of this is we had a customer come into our hub like last week. He explained to me that his supplier, I think it was SSC, has sent him a text message basically saying he needs to upload a meter reading to get onto his account so he can get an accurate bill. He passed me a phone which, you know, we'd probably say is basic in terms of what the phone is. I mean, he didn't have any mobile data, he had no internet access, he didn't have money at the time to even top up to get his extra data on either. So he passed me his phone. I literally put it into the laptop, the link, and then I did this for him within like 2 minutes. So this is something that obviously you and I probably take for granted. But for the gentleman, he could have been in like a predicament where he may not have been able to upload his meter readings. This means he could have had an estimated bill that could have been quite significant, and he may have, you know, potentially got into debt that he may not be able to pay. These are just the kind of things that we're dealing with. But although this is just like one case in the hub, this is something that is becoming more apparent, especially across Sandwell where we are, but Birmingham, particularly Hall Green and Balsall Heath. Particularly if we look at the facts, like there's the 1/5 of Britons are not even online. So that's like millions of people. And as Salim touched on earlier, 20% of Birmingham, you know, they're not even there yet. So this is kind of like where our relationship with Get Families Talking Smart like kind of speaks volumes. So we can bring the expertise of their digital inclusion and our digital champions come together using their data bank, as you touched upon earlier, and just the services that provide our knowledge in the industry as well, can support in many different ways. Yeah, we have the content, we have the experience, it's just getting the next steps really and just seeing what's out there, and that's kind of like where our partnership will succeed. But yeah, that's kind of it. Apologies, I haven't got like a really nice presentation, you just had to listen to me talk for a bit, but yeah.
Thank you very much, Jack, and that was absolutely fantastic to hear that. And I have to say the relationship with Utilita has been absolutely fantastic. Large organisation, they have many customers, and you would have thought, well, why would they be even interested in coming down to Balsall Heath? But they have been so flexible in trying to understand what our needs are and how they can work with us as well. I think working with the likes of Utilita, Good Things Foundation, and many other large corporates who were knocking on our door is instrumental in moving forward to deliver services. And I think it also shows the importance of how organizations, corporate organizations who aren't even based in our area, but want to work with our service users, they see the importance of working in the community because we can help reach the community faster than they can. And it's important for them in terms of raising their awareness and other issues around there as well. So the one thing we said to Jack when he first came out and said he's very keen to work with us is that you're more than welcome as long as you're not going to sell anything. And we had a big laugh about that because you always worry that there's another agenda when corporates want to come onto our territory. But in this case, it was quite genuine. And I know, having spoken to the digital inclusion team, there are many other corporates who want to work with us as well, not just Hall Green, but across the city. And I think where you can work in partnership to help develop the service, because unfortunately, it's just too big for us, any one organisation to take on board. So working hand in hand with organisations and networking is absolutely vital as far as we see this as well. So I just want to thank our two guests. There is an opportunity for anyone now, if you'd like to share any thoughts, if you've got any questions based on the information you've just heard, you've just seen, if there are things that we may have missed out, things that we may need to improve within our service. now's an opportunity to perhaps air those as well. So is there anyone who'd like to start asking any questions about what you've heard today? Hi, and Angela, you're on mute. You've got your hand up.
Here we are. Right. I'm speaking on two behalves. One is a local charity which operates from the Friends Institute, which is just around the corner from where you are. And the other is that I'm also responsible for our local C of E church. And quite often we find that it's not so much the fact that people can't access the actual equipment, but they actually have a reluctance to use it, a sort of psychological reluctance. You know, we send around a parish newsletter. Have you got your parish news? Oh, I don't use the internet. Now, I wonder how you sort of address that particular type of problem.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angela. And the confidence factor that you mentioned is absolutely instrumental in how people get online or don't get online. That question I'm going to pass on to Hilary, because I know Hilary can answer that in volumes.
Angela, I think there's a lot of things. I think Salim's right. A lot of the research that we do shows that a lot of people that aren't online because they either don't see it applying to them, or they're nervous of it. And the two things are kind of wrapped up together. They kind of, oh, well, it's not for me, I don't need it. And I'll go back to the sort of sheltered scheme where I was working before. There's a lot of things that have gone into getting older people in online. One is that quite often the sort of, if you've got digital champions working or individuals working, is to make something social. So the first point of call actually is that you get people in for a coffee morning, whether it's at church or where they live, and you very gradually introduce a subject. The other thing that we talk about a lot, and I think that digital champion volunteers are really good at, is finding out what somebody's interested in first, and that's what tends to bring them in. So if somebody likes musicals, well, if you went online, you could access something called YouTube, and you could watch lots of clips of it, or actually, you know, let me find out a bit more about you. Oh, your sister's down in Cornwall, you haven't spoken to her in a long time. Would you like to see her face? Because maybe we could just set up a little sort of video chat app or something. So one of the best ways of getting older people on the line, I think, is to talk to them about what might interest them, and then show them how much the digital world could give them. I think the other thing is that it does take a lot of reassurance, because we all worry about being safe online. And it's not long ago that I'd had a scam email that was really close to me kind of pressing the wrong button at the wrong time. So I think there is a lot of work to be done around reassuring people. And I know that as I get older, my memory is not what it was. I think you need a lot of patience, because actually, if you've used a computer or the internet or an app on a regular basis, it's just second nature. But actually, if you don't use it as part of your work or your day-to-day life, none of the words even make sense. So like what Jack was saying about, well, what does digital mean? It's kind of all of that. We talk about a mouse or an app and none of those things are words that people necessarily would use all the time. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in getting digital volunteers to stop using jargon as well, and just try and put themselves in someone else's shoes and say, well, you can't go, well, you just press this and you just do that and look, voila, what you've got. It's a huge amount of patience and a huge amount of making people feel comfortable in what they're doing. And I could go on, but I better stop.
Thank you, Hilary. And I think, Angela, what that shows that it's not a one size that fits all. You really have to take each individual for their individual merits as well. And I think what we've also found is customizing their journey. So rather than trying to say, look, this is what you need to learn, you, like Hilary said, try and customize it to their individual self. And the work that Jack does also, that's a classic example. I don't know if Jack, you want to bring anything in, but the fact that people may not find it attractive or their cup of tea to do digital, But if you then start bringing in the cost of living element, or the fact that you can upload your meter readings online, or you need to take photographs, that then customizes the whole journey. Jack, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that we try to encourage is like the app download, and you know, people are quite worried about smart meters. You know, there's a lot of stigma around them, if you like, but with the app, when they have the application on their phone, they can monitor their usage, they can top up. It's so much easier, and it's so much more accessible. Yeah, like you're saying, Salim, it's just a lot easier for them. But I guess it's that whole technical piece is perhaps people are just worried about downloading it, or they just don't want to take that next step.
Absolutely. And Angela, I have to say also, the older you get, the less your motivation becomes to get online. So that in itself, that in itself becomes
you can always ask children to do it for you.
Absolutely. There's always somebody you know that would help. Hopefully that helps your answer, your question a little bit.
There must be other people waiting to ask questions, but if there aren't, I've got one other question.
By all means. Thank you, Angela. Anyone else like to chip in with anything? Good opportunity to try and ask anything, especially before Hilary leaves as well. Angela, do you want to maybe bring your next question on?
Could I well, I don't want to hog the conversation, but personally, I'm very worried about this wherever you go online, and I do use online quite a lot, although I'm not totally knowledgeable by any means. All this, do you accept cookies? And the idea that Big Brother is sitting there watching you and making a record, all the searches you do online. The next time I play a card game, guess what the cookies are? They're advertising what I've just been looking for on Google. And I hate the thought that lots and lots of personal information about me is getting stored. And this applies, in fact, to things like NHS information and, you know, the whole question of how much does Big Brother know about you? And how much should you say, no, I don't accept all cookies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge ethical issue that challenges us on there. We delivered a workshop recently around digital footprint, and it's quite scary how much, as soon as you do any movement on the internet, how it follows you around. It is an area that people are really concerned about. But it's also catch-22. Without going on the internet, you won't be able to further yourself. But by going on the internet, there are some difficulties and challenges around there that you have to monitor. There are some specific courses that Hilary has also that will help people just to understand what that means. But it's a constant ongoing battle, even organizations and individuals like myself who feel like we're a bit more experienced, we're constantly finding the battles of getting scammed, getting frauds online through emails or text messages. They come in different ways all the time. So your information will always be out there, and it's just something that you have to get used to, but understand more importantly how to manage and tackle it as well. But it's something that you just can't get away with. Your digital footprint will always be on the internet once you start using it. I'm just going to move over, if I can, Angela, to Andrea, who's got a hand raised there. Andrea?
Hi, Salim. Could you just let me know what training do you give to the digital champions, and how do you intend to attract more champions onto the programme?
Sure. The training has been in various folds. So there are individuals and there are organizations. And with the individuals, what we've been doing is, obviously, first of all, we've been going through an audit to understand why they actually want to become champions. I think trying to understand what their needs are at the beginning is really, really important. What we then do is, when you're faced with delivering perhaps online services compared to face-to-face, there is a difference between the two. So we go through a range of courses, a lot of them are the Learn My Way, but there are the additional ones that we use to start developing people before they start interacting with individuals. What we found, and to answer the second part of your question, what we found was that we felt we needed something more customized as well. So we are developing our own set of modules, and they are online modules, where we will be supporting individuals to continue their online journey on development. So when it comes to developing individuals, it comes through delivering online modules, as well as having face-to-face sessions as well. The ones that have started to progress much further, we then obviously go through clearance with them in doing DBS checks as well. And then when it comes to the organizations, we try and support the organizations to support their digital champions and the development. Developing capacity within organizations with digital champions is slightly more challenging than developing individuals, but either way, both of them, we try and put a support package around that for both the organization and the individuals as well. Does that help answer your question, Andrea?
Yes, I think it does, yeah. Because obviously you and I talk quite a lot about the Champions Programme. You did say that you had interest on colleges and schools for people wanted to become digital champions. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. So that's a different end. So going back to what we spoke about in terms of what we're doing with Utilita, where we are working with partners, we've got a number of partnership arrangements in place now, which is going to be the next stage of the development of the program. We've got a number of local schools and universities who are very, very keen and excited to try and get more placements coming in, placement opportunities for their students to become digital champions. Over lockdown, education has really been impacted, and the development of students has been impacted, because one of the things they need are placements. And so we have been in discussions with a number of further ed and university establishments to look at a pathway of bringing in some of their students to help become digital champions and work on our project. So there are going to be a number of new links that we'll be establishing, just like what we have with Utilita, to try and bring more of those resources in as well.
Okay, thanks, Celine.
Thank you. Just looking at this time, we did say it was going to end at 3 o'clock. We've gone slightly on. Apologies about that. Time management is something you need to be on top of every time. Is there anything anyone would like to ask in terms of questions, or even comments, or even feedback? Have they found this useful or not? Any feedback will be helpful. If not, we will be bringing this to an end very, very shortly. The recording will be made available, and we'll send it out to people who have joined today as well. So just a final opportunity for questions. If not, I'd like to first of all thank all our guests today. I know we've been working on trying to bring this much earlier than we wanted to, but because of clashes in diaries, certainly with Hillary and Utilita, we had to keep changing the date. So it was supposed to come out much earlier. I just wanted to thank them in particular for giving up their time and all the support they've been doing on the project up to now as well. But from myself and everyone else, that's all we're going to do for today. That's all the time we have for today. And please do look out for further updates through both Hall Green NNS, as well as through our website and through social media as well. So thank you very much, and I'll stay on the line just in case anybody wants to carry on talking as well for a short while.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela. Hope you found it helpful.
Yes, I could talk for a lot more.
You must consider becoming one of our digital champions then.
Are you actually, you're centred at the Moath Centre, are you?
No, the Digital Recycling Centre is centred over there. We're over in Borsall Heath. You're not many miles away, but I do believe your details have been passed on, so I'm sure we'll be speaking very shortly as well.
Yes. Is your email online? Are you?
I'll put it in the chat because I know you're new to this service, but I'll put it in the chat for you.
Thank you. Because we are hoping to extend our community activities at the Friends Institute, and this was one of the things that had been suggested.
Yeah.
You know, we had a sort of computer group. So
Absolutely.
Is it in the chat now?
How did you find out about the workshop today then?
Through your publicity, through the NNS, Hall Green NNS publicity.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so it does work.
Absolutely. And it's the first time you've joined this event as well, haven't you?
Probably, yes.
Hall Green. Okay.
I've been around for a long time. I was involved, you may have heard, with, well, I was the founder of Birmingham Centre for Arts Therapies. And people, I don't know if you know the name Richard Mole, do you? Does that mean?
Yes, yes. That's a blast from the past, isn't it?
Yes, well, there you are. Because I used to be Richard's boss before I retired. And now I seem to be getting involved yet again.
It all goes round. It's a 360-degree circle, isn't it?
That's right, yes. Well, I'll certainly be in touch, Salim.
Yes, look forward to it. And thank you very much for today and your questions as well.
Well,
always helpful.
Yes, I mean, I absolutely go nuts when people say, no, I haven't heard, but then of course I don't use, you know, I don't use digital media, almost as if that's, they're being very clever to manage without, you know, and it means you have to send umpteen things through the post or something, you know.
Yeah, it's